The massive alien vessels appeared without warning at the edge of the solar system, silent, unmoving. Their sleek hulls reflected the distant sunlight as they drifted, seemingly powerless, beyond Neptune's orbit. Earth's defense systems detected them immediately. Satellites, long-range scanners, and military outposts throughout the system blared urgent alerts. Within hours, emergency meetings convened across every major nation. Military forces worldwide went to high alert. "They're not approaching," reported General Tom Baker as he studied the screens at Earth Defense Command. "No energy signatures indicating weapons. They're just floating." For 3 days, Earth watched and waited. Then it happened. A signal, broadcast on multiple frequencies using simple mathematical sequences. The kind of universal language one might use to communicate with an unknown intelligence. Captain James Reeves stood on the bridge of the Earth Space Navy vessel Horizon *, watching the alien fleet grow larger on his view screen. At 42, Reed had spent half his life in space, but never had he faced a first contact situation. His orders were simple yet impossibly complex. Approach, establish communication, determine intent. All systems nominal. Captain, his first officer, Lisa Park, reported, "We'll be within communication range in 10 minutes." Reed nodded, hiding his nervousness. Humanity had long prepared for this moment, but theories and protocols seemed insufficient now that it was actually happening. Broadcasting our response using the same mathematical sequence, Communications Officer Dan Miller announced, adding basic language packets as discussed. The reply came faster than expected. The alien transmission contained visual data, imagery of their ship's internal systems, diagrams of damaged engines, and life support readings dropping steadily. "They're asking for help," Reed realized aloud. The alien fleet was truly massive. Over 50 ships ranging from small craft to enormous vessels, stretching kilometers in length. Further communication revealed they called themselves the Varan, and their situation was dire. Through increasingly complex exchanges, the story emerged. The Varan fleet had been traveling between star systems when they encountered an unexpected radiation field. Their advanced propulsion systems had catastrophically failed, leaving them adrift with limited power for essential systems. Their life support is critical on several ships, Park reported after analyzing the transmitted data. "They got millions of civilians aboard. If we don't help them, they won't survive another month." Reed established a visual communication link with the Varan commander, a tall, slender being with silver-blue skin and large, expressive eyes. "I am Admiral Nalo of the Varan Exodus Fleet," the alien said through the translation system. "We thank you for responding to our distress. Our situation is desperate." Back on Earth, the debate raged. Help these unknown aliens who appeared with technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. What if this was an elaborate trap? What if helping them brought unforeseen consequences? Reed received constant updates from these discussions as he maintained position near the alien fleet, continuing to gather information and build communication protocols with the Varan. "They could have attacked if that was their intention," argued Dr. Ben White, Earth's leading xenobiologist, during a Global Security Council meeting. "Their technology is clearly advanced. Why fake a distress call when they could simply invade?" President Maria Garcia made the final decision. "Throughout human history, we have faced moments that defined us as a species. This is one such moment. If we were lost among the stars, we would hope for compassion from those we encountered. We will extend the same to the Varan." The message reached Reed as the Horizon * maintained its vigil beside the alien fleet. "Captain Reed," President Garcia's voice came through clearly. "You are to inform the Varan that Earth will render all possible assistance. Operation Lighthouse is now active. Bring our new friends home." Reed looked out at the massive, darkened ships and the millions of lives within them. Humanity's first contact would not be about war or fear, but about compassion and aid. Whatever came next, This moment would change everything. Earth buzzed with news of the alien visitors. In homes, offices, and public squares, screens displayed the same images. The massive Varan ships now being slowly towed into a stable orbit around Jupiter. Fear mixed with wonder as humanity processed the reality of first contact. The scan results are conclusive, Dr. Maya Wilson explained to the gathered world leaders. Her hands moved quickly over the display, showing detailed readings from the alien vessels. Their life support systems are failing exactly as they claimed. These aren't warriors. Most of the ships contain civilians in a form of hibernation. Families. Children. General Baker frowned. That doesn't mean they aren't dangerous. Their technology is far beyond ours, which is precisely why we should help them, countered Dr. Wilson. Think of what we could learn. Captain Reed, attending the meeting via secure link from the Horizon Asterisk, had spent the most time communicating with the Varan. Admiral Nallo has been transparent about their situation. They're refugees. Their home system was destroyed by a stellar event. This fleet contains what remains of their entire civilization. President Garcia studied the faces around the table. There are risks either way. If we help them, and they betray us, we're vulnerable. If we refuse to help, and they are genuine, millions die while we watch. She paused. And what would that say about humanity? The debate lasted 3 days. Scientists, military experts, and ethicists presented arguments for and against intervention. Public opinion shifted hourly as more information became available. Finally, a global vote was held, something unprecedented in human history. The question was simple: do we help? The results came in from every corner of the planet. Despite the fear, despite the unknowns, humanity chose compassion by a significant margin. "We would want the same if we were lost among the stars," became the rallying cry. Captain Reed received his new orders with a mix of pride and apprehension. He would command Operation Lighthouse, Earth's mission to save the stranded aliens. "We're making history, Park," he told his first officer as they prepared to board the Varan flagship for the first official meeting. The inside of the alien vessel was both familiar and utterly foreign. The basic needs of biological life created certain universal design elements: corridors, rooms, control centers. But the aesthetics were nothing like human ships. Smooth, flowing surfaces transitioned seamlessly from walls to floors. Lighting came from everywhere and nowhere. Admiral Nallo greeted them in what appeared to be a command center. "Captain Reed, we are grateful for your world's decision. I must admit, we did not expect such kindness from an unknown species." Reed smiled. "We're still arguing about it, to be honest. But that's what humans do. We argue, then we act." The technical exchange began immediately. Human engineers studied the Varan propulsion systems, which used principles of physics that Earth scientists had only theorized about. The aliens' technology was elegant, almost artistic in its design. "It's beautiful," said Chief Engineer Alan Foster as he studied the alien dry schematics, "but not very practical." "What do you mean?" asked Kell, the Varan chief engineer. "No redundancies," Foster explained. "When something breaks, your whole system fails. We build things differently. Messier, maybe, but with multiple backups." The aliens seemed puzzled by human engineering practices. Their technology had been refined over thousands of years to be elegant and efficient, but it lacked the adaptability that characterized human designs. "Your methods are unrefined," Admiral Nallo observed with what Reed interpreted as disapproval. "But effective," Reed countered. "And right now, effectiveness is what you need." As the technical teams worked, Earth prepared for the massive undertaking. Factories retooled to produce components. Space stations expanded to serve as staging areas. The largest humanitarian mission in human history took shape. Not everyone supported the effort. Protests erupted in some regions. Security threats emerged from extremist groups opposed to helping invaders. Yet the work continued. Reed watched the massive Earth ships approach the alien fleet, carrying supplies and repair crews. He couldn't help but feel pride at humanity's response. Whatever happened next, Earth had made its choice. They would not turn away from those in need, even when those in need came from another star. 2 weeks into Operation Lighthouse, the human engineers faced their first major setback. The Varan propulsion systems, for all their advanced design, had a fundamental flaw that no one had anticipated. "It's the fuel," Dr. Maya Wilson explained, pointing to the holographic display in the Joint Human-Varan Command Center. "Their drives require an element we've never even seen before, something they call Nexium. They've exhausted their supplies completely." Admiral Nallo's silver-blue face showed what Reed had learned to recognize as distress. "We harvested Nexium from our home system. It does not exist in many places." The room fell silent. Without a viable fuel source, the entire rescue operation would fail. Millions of Varan would die as their life support systems gradually shut down. "What about alternatives?" Reed asked, refusing to accept defeat. Engineer Foster scratched his beard thoughtfully. "Their drive technology is generations beyond ours, but our fusion reactors might provide enough power to at least get their life support fully functional." "Impossible," stated Kell, the Varan engineer. "Your primitive fusion technology is incompatible with our systems. The energy signatures alone would cause catastrophic failures." Dr. Wilson stood suddenly. "Not if we modify the output through a resonance chamber." Her fingers flew across her tablet, projecting a new schematic. "We could adapt our fusion reactors to produce an energy signature that mimics their fuel." The Varan Scientific Council, who had been observing via holographic link, erupted in objections. Their translator struggled to keep up, but the message was clear. Humans were too primitive to understand, let alone modify Varan technology. "With respect," Wilson said firmly, "being primitive has its advantages. We're used to making do with what we have." Reed backed her play. "Give Dr. Wilson one ship to test her theory, one of your smaller vessels." After much debate, Admiral Nallo agreed. The Varan provided a scout ship, the smallest in their fleet. For 3 days, Wilson and her team worked nonstop, adapting human fusion technology to interface with alien systems. The human approach was distinctly different from the Varan method. Where the aliens focused on elegant, complex solutions, the humans improvised with available materials. They built redundancies into every system, planned for failures, and created manual overrides where none had existed before. This goes against all established engineering principles. Kell complained as he watched Wilson's team connect what looked like a makeshift reactor to the scout ship's drive system. "Sometimes you have to break the rules to solve the problem," Wilson replied without looking up. "Ready for test sequence." Everyone clear the chamber. The human and Varan engineers retreated to the observation room. Wilson initiated the startup sequence remotely. The improvised reactor hummed to life, power readings climbing steadily. "Energy conversion at 20%, 40%. Foster called out, watching the meters. 60% and holding stable. Kell stared at the readings in disbelief. That should not be working. Warning lights suddenly flashed as power fluctuations rocked through the system. The reactor core temperature spiked dangerously. "Coolant failure in Section 3. Wilson shouted. Instead of shutting down the test, she rushed back into the chamber despite the dangers. "What is she doing?" Nallo demanded. Reed watched through the window as Wilson manually adjusted valves and rerouted power. "She's doing what humans do best, improvising." The alarm stopped. The power level stabilized. When Wilson returned, her face was streaked with sweat but wearing a triumphant smile. "It works," she announced. "We can modify Earth's fusion reactors to power Varan systems. It's not pretty, but it'll keep them alive." The data confirmed her claim. The small scout ship systems were running at 70% efficiency using the human-built power source. For the first time, Admiral Nallo looked at the humans with genuine respect. "Perhaps," the Admiral said slowly, "there is wisdom in your primitive methods after all." Word spread quickly through both fleets. The humans had found a solution where the Varren saw none. It wouldn't be easy. Scaling up the prototype to power the massive Varren ships would require Earth's entire industrial capacity. But it was possible. That night, as engineers from both species began planning the full-scale implementation, Reed overheard a Varren scientist speaking to Kell. These humans, they solve problems in ways we would never consider. It's as fascinating as it is unsettling. As engineers worked on the enormous technical challenge of retrofitting the Varren fleet, something unexpected began to happen. Curiosity overcame fear. First among the scientists and technicians, then spreading to others. Humans and Varren started to learn about each other. Captain Reed noticed it first in the mess hall aboard the Horizon Asterisk, which had become an unofficial meeting ground. A group of human engineers sat with their Varren counterparts, no longer discussing only technical matters, but sharing stories. "Is it true your planet has liquid water covering most of its surface?" asked Talo, a Varren historian who had joined the engineering team as a cultural liaison. "About 70%, confirmed Foster between bites of his sandwich. "Don't you have oceans on your worlds?" "We did," Talo said quietly. "Our homeworld had great seas of liquid methane, beautiful beyond words in the twin moonlight." The table fell silent. Every human knew the Varren were refugees, but hearing them speak of their lost home made it real in a way statistics couldn't. "I'm sorry," Foster said simply. Talo's large eyes blinked in the Varren expression of acknowledgement. "This is why we travel. Our world is gone, but our people continue. We carry our history with us." Word of these exchanges reached Admiral Nallo and Captain Reed. By mutual agreement, they established a formal cultural exchange program. Each day, small groups of humans would visit Varren ships, while Varren delegates toured Earth facilities. Both sides approached these exchanges with caution at first, but barriers quickly fell. The Varren were astonished by human art and music. Having evolved with different sensory organs, they perceived sound and color in ways humans couldn't imagine. When introduced to Earth music, many Varren were moved to what appeared to be tears, though the silvery droplets that fell from their eyes were actually expressions of profound joy. In turn, humans were fascinated by Varren communal storytelling, a complex performance where multiple narrators wove tales together using movement, light, and harmonics. The first public demonstration aboard the Horizon Asterisk left the human audience speechless. "They're telling the story of their journey," whispered Dr. Wilson, who had learned enough of the Varren language to follow along. "The destruction of their home, their escape, and, wait." She listened more carefully. "They've added us. They're including our meeting in their history." Talo became something of a celebrity among both species. The historian spent hours documenting human behavior, particularly puzzled by one trait. "You help strangers," Talo noted during a recorded interview, "even when there is risk and no clear benefit to yourselves. This is unusual in our experience of intelligent species." Reed smiled. "Not all humans would have made the same choice. We argued about it plenty." "Yet you chose to help," Talo insisted. "Our data shows this pattern repeats throughout your history. In crisis, humans often aid those unknown to them, even at personal cost." Not all interactions were positive. A small faction of humans remained deeply suspicious of the aliens. On Earth, protests against wasting resources on outsiders grew louder. Security was tightened as threats emerged. Despite precautions, 3 days later, alarms blared throughout the joint work facility orbiting Jupiter. A small group of human extremists had infiltrated the station and planted explosives near the prototype reactor. What happened next would become legendary in both human and Varren accounts. When the security system detected the threat, Varren engineers didn't flee to safety. Instead, they worked alongside humans to contain the damaged section, risking their lives to prevent a catastrophic chain reaction that would have destroyed the station and everyone aboard. The sabotage attempt failed, but its greater impact was unexpected. Footage of humans and Varen working together to save each other spread across Earth's networks. Public opinion shifted dramatically. They would have died protecting us, Foster told reporters after the incident. After today, I don't see Varen and humans. I just see people trying to survive together. Admiral Nalo observed these developments with growing interest. Your species continues to surprise us, Captain Reed, the Admiral admitted during their daily briefing. Perhaps there is more to learn from humans than engineering techniques. Reed nodded. The feeling is mutual, Admiral. This cultural exchange may prove as valuable as the technical one. The day of the first full-scale retrofit arrived. Jupiter's orbit bustled with activity as vessels from Earth ferried equipment to the Varen mothership, a colossal craft that housed over 200,000 aliens. If the implementation succeeded here, the process would be repeated across the fleet. Captain Reed stood in the mothership's cavernous engine room alongside Admiral Nalo. The space dwarfed anything humans had built, with power conduits thick as buildings stretching into the distance. Hard to believe we're actually doing this, Reed said, watching human and Varen engineers make final preparations. Your species accomplishes much through sheer determination, Nalo observed. In the past month, you've manufactured components that would take our factories a year to produce. We work well under pressure, Reed replied with a smile. Earth had indeed transformed its industries for this moment. Factories worldwide ran continuously, producing the specialized fusion reactor components designed by Wilson's team. Space elevators operated at maximum capacity, lifting thousands of tons of equipment daily. It was the largest coordinated effort in human history. Beginning power transfer sequence, announced Dr. Wilson over the comm system. All non-essential personnel clear the main engine chamber. The enormous improvised reactor core hummed to life. Its design was unmistakably human, practical rather than elegant, with exposed cooling systems and multiple redundancies visible throughout. It looked almost crude next to the sleek Varen technology it would power. Phase 1 energy level stable, reported Foster, increasing output to 25%. Human and Varen technicians monitored readings closely. The interface between Earth technology and alien systems was the most critical component, and the most likely to fail. 30%, 40%, all systems nominal, Wilson continued. Admiral Nalo's expression remained unreadable, but Reed noticed the alien's hands gripping the railing tightly. Everything depended on this moment. 50%, and holding steady, Wilson announced, preparing for Phase 2 integration. The lights throughout the massive chamber dimmed briefly as power was rerouted. The reactor's hum deepened, becoming a physical sensation that vibrated through the deck plates. 70%, 75%. A sudden alarm blared. Red warning lights flashed across control panels. Power spike in Section 12. Foster shouted. The containment field is fluctuating. Reed watched in horror as a cascade of failures rippled through the system. The reactor core began to pulse with dangerous energy. Shutdown sequence initiated, Wilson called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. We're routing coolant to affected sectors. It's not responding, Kell warned. The automated systems are locked in a feedback loop. The situation deteriorated rapidly. The interface between human and Varen technology was becoming unstable, creating unpredictable energy surges. If the reactor went critical, it would destroy not only the mothership but potentially damage other vessels nearby. We need to manually separate the systems, Wilson decided. Someone has to reach the main junction and physically disconnect the power couplings. Impossible, Kell responded. Radiation levels near the junction are already beyond safe limits. Reed and Nalo exchanged glances. The same thought occurred to both commanders simultaneously. I'll go, Reed said, already moving toward the emergency suits. No, Nalo countered. The radiation affects your species more severely than mine. I will go. With respect, Admiral, this is our technology that's failing. It's our responsibility. Wilson interrupted them both. Neither of you is going. I designed this system. I know exactly which connections to sever. Before anyone could stop her, Wilson had sealed herself in her radiation suit and was cycling through the airlock into the junction room. Everyone watched the life signs monitor as Wilson worked. Her vital signs showed increasing stress as radiation penetrated the suit. Still, her hands moved with precision, disconnecting the primary couplings one by one. Reactor stabilizing, Foster reported. Power levels dropping to safe parameters. When Wilson returned, her face was pale but determined. Medical teams immediately took her for treatment. The retrofit had nearly ended in disaster, but her quick action had saved thousands of lives. Hours later, after modifications to the design, they tried again. This time, the power transfer succeeded, reaching 100% capacity without incident. The Varan mothership's systems came fully online for the first time since entering the solar system. A cheer erupted throughout the chamber, humans and Varans celebrating together. Reed noticed even Admiral Nalo joining in, the alien's typically stoic demeanor giving way to what could only be described as joy. Today we have accomplished what neither of our species could have done alone, Nalo announced to the assembled engineers. This will be remembered in Varan history for generations to come. Reed nodded in agreement, but his thoughts were already on the enormous task ahead, repeating this process for the remaining 49 ships in the Varan fleet. The hardest part of Operation Lighthouse was just beginning. The retrofit operation had hit its stride. 23 Varan ships now operated on human-engineered power cores, with work progressing on 12 more. The impossible was becoming routine as human and Varan teams refined their procedures with each installation. Captain Reed reviewed progress reports in the Joint Command Center when Officer Park burst in, her face tense. "Captain, long-range sensors have detected something," she said, transferring data to the main display. "It's approaching from the same vector the Varan fleet arrived from." The screen showed a wave of energy spreading through space, moving toward the solar system at nearly light speed. "What am I looking at?" Reed asked. Kell, who had entered behind Park, stared at the display with visible alarm. "It cannot be." Admiral Nalo was summoned immediately. The Varan commander took one look at the readings and turned to face Reed. "This is what damaged our fleet, a radiation wave unlike any naturally occurring phenomenon." Scientists from both species worked to analyze the incoming wave. Dr. Wilson, still recovering from radiation exposure, but refusing to remain sidelined, led the human team. "It's a form of exotic radiation that specifically disrupts advanced technology," she explained during the emergency briefing. "It passed through the region where the Varan fleet was traveling, causing their systems to fail. Now it's headed directly for us." "Time to impact?" Reed asked. 7 days, Wilson replied grimly. "Maybe 8. The news sent shockwaves through both fleets. The Varan, who had just begun to hope again, now faced another catastrophe. For Earth, the threat was equally dire, a wave of energy that could disable all technology, potentially sending humanity back to the pre-industrial age. Admiral Nalo called an emergency council with Earth's leaders. "We must complete the retrofit of our remaining vessels immediately and depart your system," the admiral stated. "We cannot risk being stranded here when the wave hits." "You're leaving?" President Garcia asked, disbelief evident in her voice. "After everything we've done to help you." "We regret the necessity," Nalo responded. "But our fleet carries the last of our civilization. We cannot risk extinction." Reed listened to the exchange with growing frustration. "What about Earth? This wave will hit us whether you're here or not." "We grieve for what may happen to your world," Nalo said. "But we have no defense against this phenomenon. That is why we fled." The meeting ended with tension between allies who had grown close over weeks of cooperation. The Varan accelerated their preparations to depart, while Earth scientists desperately searched for a way to protect their planet. Later that evening, Reed found himself unable to sleep. He walked the corridors of the Horizon Asterisk, eventually making his way to the observation deck. To his surprise, he found Talo there, gazing at the stars. "Your people are leaving," Reed said without preamble. The Varan historian turned. Yes, the decision brings many of us great shame. After your kindness, your survivors, I understand the instinct to run. Talos' large eyes blinked slowly. I have been studying human history. When faced with disaster, your kind rarely abandons others. You stay and fight, even against impossible odds. Reed smiled sadly, sometimes to our detriment. Perhaps, Talo paused, or perhaps it is your greatest strength. The conversation gave Reed an idea. The next morning, he requested an urgent meeting with Admiral Nalo. Instead of accusations, he brought a proposal. Our scientists believe we might be able to create a shield against the radiation, Reed explained, displaying Dr. Wilson's theoretical designs. It combines Varan deflector technology with our nuclear deterrent systems, but we need your help to build it in time. This is untested, Nalo objected. It may fail. Then we fail together, Reed countered. Or you can run, knowing you abandoned the species that saved you. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. When Nalo spoke again, it was with determination. Your people have shown us what it means to help strangers. We will not forget that lesson so quickly. The decision was made. The Varan fleet would stand with Earth against the approaching threat. Scientists and engineers from both species worked feverishly to develop the shield technology, installing projectors at strategic points throughout the solar system. As the wave approached, humans and Varan prepared to face it together. The friendship forged in crisis now faced its ultimate test. Reed watched the countdown tick away, standing shoulder to shoulder with Nalo on the horizon's bridge. Whatever happens, the captain said quietly, I'm proud we tried. As am I, the Admiral replied. Your species has taught mine the value of standing together. That alone is worth the risk. The wave was now just hours away from reaching Earth. The radiation wave loomed at the edge of the solar system, a silent monster approaching Earth. On the view screens throughout the human and Varan fleets, it appeared as a shimmering distortion, beautiful yet deadly. Shield network at full power, Dr. Wilson reported from the central control station. Her face showed the strain of the past 72 hours, during which she had barely slept. All projectors responding normally. Captain Reed nodded, his eyes fixed on the countdown display. 5 minutes until impact. Around him, the Joint Command Center hummed with tense activity as humans and Varan monitored their systems. This shield design is remarkable, Kell said, standing beside Wilson at the main console. The combination of our deflector principles with your nuclear resonance technology, no single species would have conceived it. Let's hope it works, Wilson replied. Otherwise, we just built the most sophisticated failure in two civilizations' histories. Admiral Nalo approached Reed, the tall alien's movements deliberate and formal. Captain, regardless of what happens next, I wish to express the gratitude of my people. When we were strangers in need, humanity showed us compassion. We will never forget this. Reed extended his hand. After a moment of hesitation, Nalo took it in the human gesture of friendship they had come to understand. 2 minutes to impact, announced Officer Park. All non-essential systems powering down as precaution. Across Earth, people gathered around screens or looked up at the sky, though the approaching wave was invisible to the naked eye. Humanity held its breath, united in facing a threat many still didn't fully understand. 1 minute, Park continued. Shield harmonics stable. Reed thought of everything that had happened since the Varan arrived. The fear, the debate, the decision to help, the cultural exchanges, the near disasters, and the triumphs. Whatever happened next, both species had been changed by meeting each other. Impact in 10, 9, 8. Everyone watched as the wave reached the outermost shield projectors. The network lit up on the tactical display, a web of energy surrounding the solar system. Shield integrity holding at 90%. Wilson called out. 85%. The wave passed through the first layer of defenses, its power slightly diminished but still dangerous. It continued toward Earth, encountering each successive layer of the shield network. 70% integrity. 65. Alarms sounded as several projectors failed, creating gaps in the defensive network. Reed gripped the edge of the command console, watching as the wave approached the final layer of protection. Final shield at 40% strength, Wilson reported, her voice tense. 35. 30. The command center lights flickered as the wave hit Earth's immediate defenses. For one terrible moment, it seemed the shield would collapse entirely. Rerouting emergency power, Kell shouted, his fingers flying across the alien controls. Reinforcing the weakened sectors. The shield display stabilized, holding at 22% integrity. Barely enough, but holding. Minutes passed as the wave washed over Earth, testing the combined technology of two civilizations pushed to their limits. Then it was past. The radiation wave continued into space, leaving the solar system behind. Silence filled the command center, broken finally by Wilson's exhausted voice. Shield network intact. Wave has passed with minimal penetration. We did it. The celebration that erupted knew no species boundary. Humans embraced Varen, caution, and protocol forgotten in the joy of survival. News of their success spread quickly to Earth and throughout the refugee fleet. In the days that followed, Admiral Nallo and President Garcia signed the first formal treaty between humans and an alien species. The Varen would establish a permanent colony on one of Jupiter's moons, bringing their advanced knowledge as payment for Earth's help. We came as desperate refugees, Nallo announced during the ceremony. We remain as friends and allies. The treaty opened doors beyond what either species had imagined. The Varen shared their star charts, revealing a galaxy more populated than humans had dreamed. As the first alien species humans had encountered, the Varen agreed to introduce Earth to the wider galactic community when humanity was ready. 1 month after the wave passed, Captain Reed stood with Tallow on the observation deck of the Horizon, watching as construction began on the Varen colony. The story of how humans rescued strangers from the stars has already spread among our people, Tallow said. It will become one of our most cherished histories. Reed smiled. And what does this history teach? That compassion can exist between entirely different worlds, the historian replied. That strangers can become allies through courage and kindness. As Reed looked out at the busy activity around Jupiter, where human and Varen ships moved in harmony, he knew humanity had gained more than advanced technology or alien allies. They had proven something important about themselves. When faced with unknown visitors in desperate need, they had chosen to help rather than hide or attack. That choice had now defined humanity's first steps into a much larger universe.